In this video we want to talk about the assessment of the market. In other words, what are the issues surrounding market economics? What are its, if you like, its advantages, and what are its disadvantages, and what are some of the issues associated with market economics? Well, to start, the market answers the following questions. What should be produced? Now, determining what should be produced, if we didn't have market economics, that would be a very complicated question to address. If it was left to, let's say, a panel of planners, people who were going to plan what was going to be produced, they would have to carefully work out what was required and try to make sure what was produced matches the requirements of the consumers. With capitalism, with the market economy, entrepreneurs spot what individuals want, and entrepreneurs bring businesses into existence to produce those products, but also to make a profit for themselves. The incentive for the entrepreneurs is to generate a profit. So the entrepreneurs are constantly on the lookout for niches in the market, for gaps in the market, for products that they think the consumer will want or would enjoy to have, and they will produce those products. Not all of the products will be a success. Sometimes entrepreneurs produce items that are not wanted, but they lose. The entrepreneurs lose. We as a society don't really lose. We haven't invested in the business, and it's not been subsidized out of our taxation. So if the business fails, it's the entrepreneurs who fail. If the business is a success, the entrepreneurs will make a profit, but we will also get a product that we wanted, and presumably at a price that we can afford. Otherwise it won't sell. The second question is, how should the output be produced? Well, what technology should be deployed? What technology should be put in place to produce the output? This again is dealt with by the entrepreneur. In a nutshell, it's the most straightforward technology, the cheapest technology, the most efficient technology, and bearing in mind that whatever one entrepreneur does, other entrepreneurs are watching, and he or she will have competitors who will try to produce the same item, or essentially the same item, cheaper. So there is a constant pressure on the entrepreneur to be efficient in the use of resources. And this happens automatically. It's not forced on the entrepreneurs by the government. It's the competitive nature of the system that's forcing this to happen. And then, who should receive the output? When an output is produced, who should receive it? Well, the answer here may seem a little crude, but those who can afford to buy the product will receive it. The product is being put on the market. It's an economic product, it's a scarce product, so it commands a price. And people who can afford to pay the price will receive the product. People who can't afford to pay the price will not receive it. Now that may sound very harsh, but that's the nature of the system. Now, problems with the market system. Well, for a start, over a period of time, the distribution of income can become highly skewed. In other words, we may have the development of a few very rich individuals and a lot of people who are poor. And over time, that may become even more exaggerated. So there may be an issue about the distribution of income. And if a lot of people are poor under the system, they will not buy into the nature of the system. So a revolutionary, politically unstable situation could arise, where people are disaffected, they're alienated from the system, they don't agree with the system, they don't care about the system, they have nothing to lose, they're very poor. So it doesn't matter to them if they're poor under capitalism or under communism or under anything else. poverty is poverty. So the distribution of income is an issue. And sometimes governments try to redistribute incomes and have welfare programs to help poor people. They have perhaps unemployment benefit or family support programs and so on to try and alleviate the harshness of the system. You see, capitalism is based on competition, so it is survival of the fittest in that sense. People who have skills, who are educated and have skills, and people who work hard will be rewarded. People who perhaps have not attained very high academic skills or have not got a lot of vocational skills or competencies or exposure to industry and work discipline, those people will get left behind. And as the world becomes increasingly sophisticated and increasingly technological, it's likely that more and more people are going to get left behind, because the amount of training that's required to keep them up to date and to enable them to participate in the society. Also, the market system has to be a limit on what sort of goods it produces. Generally speaking, we don't allow the market system to produce dangerous goods. Dangerous goods can be all sorts. We don't allow industry to produce explosives and just sell it on the high street, because it would be very dangerous. But also, we try to make sure that the products that are sold, going away from the extreme example I've just given you, but the products that it does sell should not be dangerous. Say, for example, a producer is making children's toys. Now, children's toys should be safe. But if the children's toy is not safe, if it has properties which are toxic or dangerous, or they could be flammable or whatever, there could be a danger to the child's life, then it's felt that the government should have a role in ensuring that the products conform to some safety standards. So it's not a free system in the sense of producers can produce what they want. It is controlled. There's also the production of undesirable products. Now this is debatable, what is desirable and what's not, and of course if we sample the population and ask them their opinions, we'll get some people who will support and some people who won't. But for example, we don't have shops that sell hard drugs on the high street. We don't have in the towns and cities of the country, we don't have shops that specialise in selling hard drugs. We believe that these are injurious to health and to the community and just downright dangerous. So we don't have that sort of situation, people selling heroin openly. Now, there may be people in the society who think it would be better if they did, so it would make everything in the open and it can be dealt with. But it's believed that undesirable products should not be sold in public. But it covers a wide range of issues. There may be some morality involved and some religious influence here. So, for example, products related to say adult entertainment, or products related to adults, these may be controlled in some way because they're felt to be immoral or wrong. So the market system is not free. It is controlled. It's controlled by the government and it's controlled by society. There are also health and safety issues associated with products. For example, products should not be dangerous, as I just said earlier. And there's an issue that there should be disclosure about what's in the product. For example, in foodstuffs, we should be able to read about the ingredients. So, for example, people who have a nut allergy should be warned about the presence of nuts in certain products. But other people may have issues with certain products, and it could be related not just to health and safety, it could be related to religion. People don't eat certain items, and they should be alerted to the presence of those items. So health and safety is another area where industry is controlled. Competition, well, the whole system is based on competition. As I said earlier, it's like survival of the fittest. The best manufacturer in terms of competitive performance will win out. So one company may become extremely efficient and beat the other companies. In fact, beat them out of existence. So that the efficient company becomes a monopoly, a single producer of this product. Well, if the company becomes a single producer, it doesn't have to worry about competition, so it can put the price up. Then consumers will have to pay a higher price to get the product. So it's the maintenance of a competitive system that's important. But then again, you could argue that competition is or can be wasteful. For example, companies may spend a lot of resources advertising their product, perhaps, and that's a waste. It could be seen as a waste. Or the companies could spend a lot of time engaging in research into their competitors. Well, if the competitors didn't exist, they wouldn't have to do that, and that resource could be used elsewhere. So competition, which is seen as a good thing, it may also lead to bad outcomes, inefficient use of resources, let's say wasteful advertising, but it could lead to a diminution in competition, because the more successful companies outcompete the less successful, and the less successful go out of business, leaving fewer and fewer companies. So it goes from highly competitive to monopolistically competitive to oligopolistic, and finally goes to monopoly, perhaps. And once it's a monopoly, then the producer has got a lot of power. They can put the price up, they can vary the product, they can relax about innovation and change and the need for a lot of advertising. They can earn monopoly profits. So competition is something that has to be monitored. We also have market failure. Well, market failure is quite a technical topic, and it's the subject matter of other videos on the course. But let's just have a look at a few of the ways in which market failure can come about, and let's just have a couple of words about these in this session. First of all, markets can fail because of this problem of what's called public goods. Now, as I said, all of this is going to be dealt with in separate videos elsewhere in the course. But public goods have two attributes. First of all, there's non-rivalry, and secondly, there's non-excludability. Now, non-rivalry means that the people who benefit from the goods are not rivals for the services of the good. For example, let's take the defence forces. Now, we consider that we need a defence force to defend the country, so we don't want to be invaded by another country and so on. So we have a defence force. Now, once the defence force exists, we're not rivals for it. I get the same service from the defence force as you do. If you're living in the same country, or we're living in the same country, we all benefit equally from the defence forces. So we all receive the same treatment. We all get protected by the defence forces. We all get, in a sense, looked after. And we get looked after equally. So we're not rivals. And by the way, in the case of the defence force example, we can't reject it either. So it's Um, once it's provided, we all get it. And if I say I'm a pacifist, well, I'm still being protected. Even though I'm a pacifist, I'm still being protected. So I am receiving equally the same as everyone else. That's the first attribute of public goods, non-rivalry. Now the second one is called non-excludability. We can't exclude people from receiving the benefits of the good. Back to the Defence Forces. It would be very difficult to exclude me from receiving the benefits of the Defence Forces. I'm not too sure how it would happen. The government would have to move me off into a desert island somewhere and tell everybody that I'm on the desert island and I'm not being protected by anybody. Quite frankly, it's not worth the trouble, and it wouldn't happen. So non-rivalry and non-excludability are two attributes for public goods. And of course, goods with those attributes have to be supplied by the public sector. So we have issues that we have to have taxation because of another issue called the free rider problem. If we tried to finance the public goods, if we tried to finance, say, the Defence Forces by voluntary subscription, then we would all tell lies. We all actually want the Defence Forces, let's say. But if it's by voluntary contribution, when you come to collect my money, I could tell lies and I could say, I really don't like the Defence Forces. I'm lying. I don't like the Defence Forces. I don't think we should have them. I'm not going to give you any money. Now I've lied. And I've lied on the basis that everyone else will contribute. And I will get the services of the Defence Forces free. So I have become what's known as a free rider. The danger or the problem with the free rider is that everybody lies. And if everybody lies, then we can't have voluntary payment. Can't have voluntary payment, we won't have the Defence Forces. We won't have any public goods because we could all lie about everything. And for that reason we have taxation. Taxation is coercive. We're forced to pay taxes. We have no choice about it. If we did have a choice, we'd opt not to pay it, but then we wouldn't have any Defence Forces or wouldn't have any public goods. Of course, this whole area needs qualification because there are some items that are produced by the government which may be contrived as mixed goods. They're not public goods and they're not private goods. Private goods is where we have property rights over the good. So it's mine, I have a property right. And that means I can exclude you from using my goods. This is my house, I exclude you from my house. And even if I didn't exclude you and you came into the house, we'd be rivals for the house. The more of the house you use, the less there is for me. So with private goods we have excludability and rivalry. So we have an issue that the government sometimes provides goods which have some rivalry and some excludability. For example, the government provides, let's say, education, schools. Now we believe that we want schools because we want an educated population. But the children in the school are rivals for the attentions of the teacher. The bigger the class size, the poorer quality education will be delivered. So the children are rivals. Can the children be excluded from school? Well, yes, they could. Just stop them going. Pass a law even. So schools are not public goods in this, according to this definition. So why do we have schools? Why should the government provide something which is not a public good? Doesn't meet the criteria of public goods that I mentioned earlier, non-rivalry and non-excludability. So why do we have public goods? Well, there could be something called externalities. An externality is a non-traded interdependence. And this takes us on to the next point. Externalities are non-traded interdependence. This means that someone enjoys the benefits of a good and they don't pay for it. They don't have to pay for that. It's a non-traded interdependence. For example, with school there might be positive externalities. Externalities don't have to be bad, they could be good. So there could be a positive externality with schools where the children coming out of schools are educated, to go to college or whatever, to go to university perhaps, or even they don't. They go straight to industry, but they are talented people. They've been educated. And they go on to bring about improvements in society or improvements in industry or in science or whatever, and I will benefit from that. So therefore it's argued that I should pay for education because I stand to benefit. In the long run we have a better society because people have been to schools. We have a more cognitive society, a more compassionate society. So therefore I should be forced to pay taxes for education. So we have positive externality. So mostly we think of externalities as negative. If a company opens in an area, we think it's a good thing because of employment and so on, but we have to subtract the cost, the social costs of that company. For example, the company may pollute the atmosphere, so people are inhaling bad air because of the activities of the company. Now that's a negative externality. It's a non-traded interdependence. The company is not compensating people living nearby. It's just doing it. So markets can fail for these reasons, and this is why we have a legal structure. The law may step in and control companies and regulate their activities to make sure that they're not polluting the atmosphere, or they're not polluting the water that we drink, or not making noise and operating dangerously and so on. So far we have two items here where the markets can fail. Public goods, as I said, and now externalities. But this is why the government intervenes. The final one is a little obscure. It's called asymmetric information. But markets can fail because simply the markets don't function correctly. As an example, let's say I go to university and get qualifications and get professional qualifications and so on. Now let's say I apply for a job and I go to the company. Now when I've been interviewed at the company, they're going to ask me questions about my competence and my abilities and so on. If I just simply said to them, look, I'm a very talented person, I'm excellent at this job, I'm really good, give me the job please, why should they believe me? Why should they give me the job? It's my word against theirs. They could equally say, no, you're not good at all. Why do we believe you're good? You're wasting our time. And then proceed to throw me out perhaps. So that's one scenario. But let's say I go for the interview and this time I say, look, I'm really very good, I'm very talented, I'm excellent at this job. Oh, and I've got some qualifications here that suggest that I am as well, and I produce all of these education certificates, and perhaps I produce some references from quite famous people and testimonials, and they can now start to believe me because other people are saying it. So it's the same me. If I go along to the company, it's exactly the same me, and I forget to take all my qualifications with me. I just go in for the interview. I'm telling the truth. I am very it sounds very arrogant what I'm saying, but I'm very talented, let's say, but why should they believe me? We have asymmetric information. They don't believe, and there's no way I can convince them. So what we do is we use certification. So let's say I go to the company and I take my certificates with me and my references and so on. Now I'm using certification to back up my claims. to bridge the asymmetric information gap. So markets will only work if the two sides to the market have the same information, the buyers and the sellers. And if both have the same information and the same understanding of the situation, then the market will function. But if one side has more information than the other, then the market may collapse. So it's a somewhat obscure topic for many people, but as I said, we will have a separate video on asymmetric information, and it'll be on the course also. But that's all we're going to deal with in this session. So we've looked at the market, we've looked at some of the issues surrounding the market, market failure and so on. We've looked at areas of intervention by the government. So we've looked at quite a few topics that are important. It's also important for you to ensure that you understand these topics and pad out your notes. Make out some more notes, do some research into the area, and fill out your notes and make sure you understand the various points. Well, that's it. We're going to leave it at that for now, so thank you for watching.